Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out on a rainy night. This is a part of a very long process that we go through to a March 11th vote, where the community gets to vote on the school budget. This is the official public hearing. As we go through this presentation, towards the end, I'll give you several other dates that are important where I'll be bringing this budget presentation to each of the towns. But before we begin, I would like to introduce the school board, and I'll just start at the far end. Kenny Rotner, Al Howland, Chair Maria Barth, Vice Chair Tom Newkirk, Ed Chalet, and Megan Turnbell, and Peter, you'll have to say your last name so I don't mess it up.
It's
Say it again, Pete. So you can Sword. I just wanted to make sure I didn't mess it up. I'm famous at doing that kind of thing. So, what is a hearing? A hearing is a place where we come together on the budget. You'll notice the board is here, but the board is here as listeners. They're here to participate in the conversation, but they're not here to take any official action. The official action of the board actually happens tomorrow night at their regularly scheduled meeting, where they'll take the information from this meeting and all the work they've done to date and officially begin the ratification process of the warrants, and those warrants will be what all the citizens in the community who vote on March 11th. So the presentation tonight is not a very long presentation, and I think as I go through it, you'll see why. So let me begin. First place to begin is where the board began. The school board adopted 6 budget goals. And this is before they saw anything from the administrators, anything from the staff. This is the very first step of the budget process for 2014-15. The first goal, and I took some liberty here. If you want to see the elongated, unabridged versions, they are on the web page. I did abridge these so that we could keep the slide so that people could read it. So the first goal was the budget wouldn't exceed 2% in growth. The budget would adhere to class size policy 2B. That before I offered any new positions for the board's consideration, I would look at the budget very, very carefully to see if I could determine savings before I offered new positions. That any tuition funds that were a result of the conversations that we had with Barrington and at that time at Newmarket, that those funds would be used to maintain and enhance our school programs and to help lower the tax impact of our budget. The 5th goal was that the budget would support state and local standards. And then finally, that the budget would account for the unique costs associated with Common Core, the strategic plan, the technology plan, and equalizing elementary enrollment. So all of these goals were adopted by the board, and this began the process for the proposed budget before you this evening. So what are the community's goals? And I would share with you that the community has expressed some pretty strong sentiments about the budgets that I have been responsible for. And the select people and the town council and the residents want a budget that's fiscally responsible. Now, that's not to say that select people and the council don't want a budget that meets the needs of students. They indeed do. But our parents put that at the forefront. Our parents and guardians want a budget that addresses the educational needs of our children. And finally, the school board's challenge is really to ensure that the students' needs are being met and that the budget is fiscally responsible. So if you kind of envision a teeter-totter in an elementary playground, it's trying to create that right balance that makes sure that we meet the needs of our students and that we have the commitment and support of our taxpayers as we move forward. Because we could create a budget that has, everything in it, but then lose that budget at the polls. So it's a delicate balance that we have to address. In terms of district highlights, you all have lived here for a very long time. You've raised your children here. And our staff knows this, and we know this, and so these things are sort of self-evident. We have great students. We are blessed in this district, pre-K through 12, and having some of the most wonderful students on the planet. They are dedicated learners, and part of that is our teaching staff does a great job with your children. They also want the very best for them. And then, the third element that is just so research-driven, it's just, again, a very obvious statement. We have great parental support. If you have great students and dedicated staff and parental support, you can really, really almost accomplish anything. And of course, what we also know is that these three communities of Durham, Lee, and Madbury have been incredibly supportive of this school system. We know as a result of all of that we have an academically competitive school system. Historically and right up to the present, our state test scores are above state average in the top tier of the state. Our SAT scores are above state average in the top tier of the state. And that our graduation rate is perfect for 3 years or 2 years. 3 years in a row, Oyster River High School has graduated 100% of its students. No high school in the state at this point can compete with that record. And of course, we're blessed with high college placement rates. One of the guiding factors for any budget that we go through is the adherence to Board Policy 2B, which basically says that on average, we're looking for a range of students between 18 and 22 students per classroom. In the core areas of English, social studies, math, and science, we absolutely are adhering to that policy. But when it comes to advanced placement courses or some of our electives, the numbers are a little bit lower than 18 to 1, but that's because of the uniqueness of a high school schedule. I also would want the community to know that our special education caseloads are based on the needs of our students, and that's articulated in individual education plans. And we have a guideline that we use there as well, but the most important piece under IDEA is to make sure we have a plan that meets every student's needs, regardless of their disability. In the middle school, we absolutely are in compliance with the board policy 2B. And at the elementary schools, we are as well. Occasionally, we'll have a class at the elementary schools that might be below 18, but not regularly. And again, the same criteria applies when we have special education students at either the middle school or the elementary. We are obligated by federal statute and state law to make sure we meet those children's needs. So where are we in accomplishments? A year ago, we had no plan for a district plan, a strategic plan. We had a vision, we had a mission. Over the course of the summer and this fall, we adopted broad goals. We have made significant effort in capital improvement plans. You may recall last year we articulated that we had $4 million worth of needs. Over the course of the year, we've actually addressed a little bit around, I would say approximately $1 million, and that our enrollment projections have been updated. And we have gone through years now with the projections showing a decline in the school's enrollment. The fact is, for the first time this year, what we have in the projections is that our enrollment will be stable. The district's enrollment will be stable for the next 5 years, which means we'll be around 2,000 plus students for the foreseeable future. So that's really good news. Now, when you go out past the 5-year mark, we still see a decline in enrollment, but the projections up until this year had been showing declines in enrollment annually, and for the first time, we will not see that in the next 5 years. So that's really terrific news. The challenges we face, we still haven't finished the strategic plan, and the hard work is in front of us. It's really building the specific action strategies at the schoolhouse level and at the operations level in order to articulate to the community exactly how we plan on getting the work done. And as I mentioned earlier, we still have approximately $3 million in unmet needs in our facilities. An example would be over $100,000 worth of heating units at the middle school that really are on their last leg. They sit on the roof. We've had problems with them all winter. We continue to keep them working by a string and a prayer and good maintenance from outside contractor, but they're struggling. And so those kinds of things are still in front of us. Our technology, I should have put this under accomplishments. Last year, the community supported a significant investment in the district's infrastructure. When I came on as superintendent, both elementary schools were working at a far slower speed in terms of bandwidth than the high school and middle school. All of that was equalized over the course of the summer, and by Christmas, the final school, Massway, had been brought up to the same speed and capability as our high school and the Mohammed School and the middle school. So great progress there. In this proposed budget, it starts to shift to hardware, but having a plan to replace the hardware in our libraries and in our computer labs in this upcoming budget. And then as we go into the third year of this plan, starting to replace hardware that really is quite ancient by technology standards in the classroom. So where were we after the board adopted its goals and after the principals did their work with the staff? Their initial request for the upcoming budget was a $686,000 or $686,945 increase, would have been an increase in the budget. And then new positions. If we added up the cost of all the new positions that administrators wanted to include in the next budget, it came to $735,396. So the increase requested at the beginning of the budget process was $1,422,341. Well, stop for a second and let you know that that increase did not include any costs associated with negotiating the teacher's contract. This was the year that the teacher's contract was up, and so we have been negotiating with the teachers throughout the fall. And again, just before Christmas, we came to an agreement with the teachers unit, and that's articulated here as we go through this slide. So in the end, where did we end up? That $1.4 million request was whittled down to $340,473. And then, because we were able to settle with the teachers just as we were hitting the holidays, we now are able to articulate that the teacher increase is $319,827. So the $1.4 million did not include the teacher's contract. The $660,300 total operating and negotiated contract does include the teacher's contract. So a pretty amazing amount of work done by the school board to make sure that we were meeting the needs of students, but also being fiscally responsible. So normally the major driver slide goes on and on. I mean, literally, 10, 15 items driving the budget. There really were just 2 items in this particular year, our benefits and our capital improvement. The capital improvement piece is really a commitment by the school board to continue to increase our facilities and capital improvement budgets so that we are dealing with issues instead of reacting to them. When I talk about a $3 million worth of facilities needs unmet, it's really because it kind of creeped up over time, and about 2 years ago the school board had a facilities document done, and as a result we now know what our needs are. So the board is inching its way forward in trying to build up that account. And then the benefits are, health insurance costs associated with increases in various accounts. On the revenue side, many of you lived through about 4 years ago where the school system had a $2.7 million fund balance. And again, the school board set a deliberate course to bring that down to a far more reasonable level. So our fund balance for this upcoming budget is $450,000. State aid, state adequacy for the district will be up in Durham, down in Lee, and up in Madbury. And those are estimates based on the Department of Education. So again, this is a slide that I've shown before, and what we're trying to do is increase our operational efficiencies. You'll see this not just in energy, but in food service and in transportation. We do it in various ways, but the one that was the most obvious in the last budget is we contracted out with Siemens to do energy efficiency upgrades, first to this high school, and then because of the success at the high school, we carried that work forward to the middle school and the elementary schools. So now all 4 buildings have had the benefit of intervention to increase operational efficiencies, things like lights that go off automatically or come on automatically when people are coming and going, those types of issues, new boilers, anything that we could really capture on that would give us a payback of less than 10 years, the school board adopted. So very comprehensive plan. We have seen a decrease in our energy use at the high school, even as prices have gone up by $21,000. And the other thing that's kind of a fun piece of decreasing our expenditures is the work that the Sustainability Committee has done along with our principals in composting our waste at lunchtime. So it may sound like a small thing, but actually it's a pretty large issue for us in terms of waste, not just as a school system, but as, as a state and as a country. I'm very proud of our students and our administrators and our food service director and our custodians as they've worked diligently to eliminate as much of the waste as possible by putting biodegradables in a composting trash bin as opposed to putting it in our trash bags. And we've reduced our waste dramatically doing that. So another major issue that has faced the district for years is our health insurance costs. I have to say that it's not an issue that has been unique to Oyster River. Of course, it's a national issue, and we hear about it all the time in our news in the evenings. I would say that about 3 years ago, when Sue Caswell came on as business manager, the board indicated a desire to try to make sure that our staff had quality health insurance, but also tried to find health insurance policies that were far less expensive. It began with our support staff over the last 3 contracts, and then ended this Christmas, as I've said, with our teachers. The teachers were at the table willing to negotiate, and as a result of that process of negotiating contracts, the teachers' contract by itself netted a savings of $295,000 in health care costs. We basically did it in 2 different ways. One is the teachers agreed to a more expensive pharmacy card, and the more that they pay towards their pharmaceutical needs, the less the district has to pay. And the second way was to lower the plan from what only can be characterized as the Cadillac plan, the Comp 100 plan, as the basis for our healthcare decisions, to a Blue Cross plan, which is still a very good plan, but far less expensive, as you can see, as the results of our negotiations with the teachers. So teachers really are to be commended for their willingness to work with the school board and come to a fairly dramatic savings in the budget. So now we're at the point where all of the health care plans and all of the contracts have all been impacted by good negotiations by both sides, leaving our staff with really good plans, but leaving our taxpayers with a lot less to pay in relation to those plans. This slide is the slide I hate the most, but it's the only way I can present it, and I apologize. I know you all have hard copies. This is just to give you a sense of where the money's being spent. You can look at different areas of the budget and get a sense, for example, that the transportation budget occupies 5.5% of the budget. High school is 19.1 and so forth. It's to give you a sense of where the money is spent. And I know it's probably not readable, perhaps to the people at home, but this whole slideshow will be on, it is currently on the web. I put it on this afternoon. So let me take a few minutes to talk about our warrants. So our first warrant is exactly related to the negotiations with the teachers. The state of New Hampshire requires that the negotiated agreements be voted on by the voters. So as I alluded to earlier, the 2014-15 budget increase related to salaries and benefits is $319,827. In the second year of the contract, $441,969. In the third year of the contract, $429,169. If you compared those numbers to the last time the voters voted on the teacher's contract, which was 3 years ago, the $319,000 is far less than any of those 3 years. The other two are just slightly more. If you took and applied inflation numbers over the last 3 years, those numbers are very reasonable to where the district has been in the past. This article is what we call the strange article, and we call it that way because we need the voters to appropriate $1. And that $1 will allow us to use lawsuit money to add to the Mohammed School so we could have a cafeteria. The local government center was sued by the towns and school systems of the state of New Hampshire. They lost. They had to reimburse school systems in towns who were participating a certain amount of money. In our case, you know, we're in a pretty good place, and we were going to get a payment holiday of around $500,000. We asked the school board to consider fixing the Mohammed School, and that's coming up in a few seconds, so we can add a cafeteria to the Mohammed School. Massway School has a cafeteria, the middle school and the high school also do. The problem with the Mohammed School is the cafeteria is the gymnasium, and we have to shut down physical education for about 90 minutes or run physical education while we're feeding students. If you can think about eating in a gymnasium, it's not the most appetizing place to eat your food. We have safety issues as a result of phys ed and the cafeteria cohabitating, and so what happens is when the cafeteria is not being used to serve food, we have all the tables on the perimeter of the gymnasium, children running around pretty regularly or run right into the tables. And so by having a separate cafeteria, we fix that issue. We also have a safety issue related to adults and the entry into the kitchen. If you know the building at all, it's a pretty steep incline, so steep that our director has fallen and our workers have fallen, and so we are trying to correct that issue as well. So this is money that is already in the current budget, and we're asking for the voters to allow us to use that money to address the cafeteria at Mohammed. So I guess I'm ahead of myself. I talked a little bit about this. Again, the money is as a result of a lawsuit that's being paid back to the district. It improves safety. It certainly creates a better eating environment, and it addresses, you know, a pretty key factor that Mohammed School is the only school without a cafeteria. This is a diagram of the proposal. It was up at the entry as you came in. The blue area represents in addition to the current gymnasium space. So if you're familiar with the Mohammed School and you walk into the gymnasium, from where you walk into the gymnasium from the hallway, you look to the back wall, that wall would be blown out and we'd add on gymnasium space. And because we do that, we're able to take the front quarter or third of the cafeteria and put up a foldable wall so that we can have a dedicated cafeteria and a dedicated gymnasium. That means tables will not be in the way of children in the gymnasium. It also means that we have more time for physical education, because now in a shared space, we have to stop phys ed to feed kids. In a space that's dedicated, phys ed can be happening all day long. So it's really a wonderfully efficient design, and it's an opportunity to use the money from LGC to do something wonderful for the children of Mohammed. The next article addresses the potential, and I would say potential here because the board has not voted on this, and we're just putting it out here as the potential for, while we're doing the addition on the Mohammed School, potentially add 2 additional classrooms. Since the contractors are there, construction is going on, it's an opportune time to take care of an issue of classroom needs at Mohammed. So we'll be talking about this particular article, all these articles, tomorrow night. The next article is to release funds that we already have. Again, this is money that the taxpayers in the past have set aside for capital improvement. With the Mohammed project, we are thinking we'll need some of this money to be released, so it's an opportune time to release it. It's $98,289, and that, tied with the LGC lawsuit funds, gives us enough money to accomplish the cafeteria. If we have more money than we need as a result of release of this, we could address those heating units on the middle school. And ultimately, if it becomes unexpended, it would just become part of our fund balance. But now is the time to do it since we have a construction project going on. And the last article really is, not the last article, the next article really addresses something that has been a major issue for the district for long before I got here. I know 3 different school boards and 3 different superintendents have discussed the idea of bringing in tuition students. This particular article, Article 7, requires your voter approval. So the school board has voted yay. Barrington School Board has voted yay. The State Board of Education has voted yay. But none of that means anything unless the combined will of our 3 towns says we want this to happen. So we have reached an agreement with the town of Barrington. Highlights are as follows. We would charge them $14,000 per student. We would not accept more than 200 students. It allows us to maintain and enhance our current high school programming. The 200 students increase is over a long period of time. It's not happening in the fall. And in fact, in 2015, which is not next year but the year after, the first year of the agreement, it starts out at only 100 students. So it's a gradual increase of students over time. Key to this agreement, which is unheard of in terms of our relationship with Barrington, is they are guaranteeing the revenue. So we'll say we get to 2015 and everybody expects there's going to be 100 students from Barrington and there's only 90. Barrington is guaranteeing that they will pay 95% of what they promised, 100 students. So for the first time in our relationship with Barrington, we have goals in terms of the number of students, and we have a price point that says if you don't meet that goal, then we at Oyster River can still rely on 95% of that revenue as we build budgets. So it's a really terrific component of this agreement. It's a 10-year agreement with a 4-year notice. Why a 4-year notice? Because we firmly believe at the school board and superintendent level that once we've made a commitment to a Barrington child to educate them in high school, that we need to maintain that commitment. So if we get out 10 years and Barrington says this isn't working for us anymore, or we say it's not working for us anymore, we can't shut the door on a freshman and send them out into the world to say find another high school. That freshman, by this contract, would be able to continue their education at Oyster River until they graduate. And I think that is absolutely the right thing to do. So as I said, the school boards approved it. Barrington School Board's approved it. The State Board has approved it. What we need to seal the deal is the voters to approve it on March 11th. So this is the last article. Barrington has to, Barrington folks have to, yeah. It takes both Oyster River communities to vote yes and the Barrington community to vote yes. Either one votes no, it fails. So it takes an absolute support from both school systems. So the last budget talks about the Fund 10, which is really what we've been talking about tonight. being set at $38,061,624. That's what you perceive as the regular operating budget. We have other funds that require approval, but they don't come from the voters. They come from the federal government or state government as grants, and those are articulated there. So again, when we get to the end of this, what we really have is a budget that's up 1.7%. And if you go back to the original goals that the board set, it could have ended up to 2%. We thought that the teachers' contract would end up being far more costly in that first year. And because of the work that the teachers brought to the table and our school board brought to the table, it was not. So it's an incredibly good negotiated contract, but both the school system and for the teachers. All of the supporting documents for the FY15 budget are posted on our website. The ABC report, which was very complimentary, very complimentary to the efforts this year of the district, is also posted. And this is what I said at the beginning, where I would bring up additional meetings. So this is the official public meeting, but I asked the selectmen and council of each town if they would be willing to host a budget meeting in their town. All 3 towns agreed. So Madbury will host a budget presentation like this on January 20th. Lee will do so on January 21st, and Durham will follow on January 27th. The next major meeting in terms of law happens on February 5th, and that's called the deliberative session. And what happens at that point is the board brings all of its work to you. The presentation shifts from me to them. They present the budget to the public, and the public decides whether we've done the work that you want us to do. You vote to support the budget. Amendments can be made at that particular meeting. And then ultimately, it all comes down to a vote on March 11th. And in Durham, it's at the high school right here from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. In Lee, it's at the safety complex from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And in Madbury, at the Madbury Town Hall from 11 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. So, as I said, this presentation was going to be relatively brief because the budget doesn't have a lot of new items in it. The items that I would point out that are included in the budget are a new strings program. That's exciting news for our student musicians. It's a program that hasn't existed except on a part-time basis after school for the last several years. This proposed budget allows it to become part of our program K through 12 in the upcoming school year. And if you are musically inclined and you see our orchestra and you see our chorus, they do a marvelous job, and this is the piece that was missing in our music program, and the school board has included that program in the budget. So I am going to stop, at least in the formal presentation, and at this point I would point out that there's 2 microphones up front. The reason the microphones are there, folks, is because this is being recorded. This will show up on our ORTV. It's not live, it's taped. So thanks to the good work of our technical staff, this presentation will get broadcast over and over again throughout the district. So microphones are there for you to come up and introduce yourself and the town you're from and ask whatever question is on your mind. And if I don't know an answer, I will tell you I don't know. That's a rule I have. If I don't know an answer, I don't fake it. If I don't know an answer, and Sue Caswell, my business manager, doesn't know the answer, what we promise to do is get you the answer. Short of that, I think we're pretty well versed in the budget, and we're more than willing to answer. If you see me start to fumble and bumble, I'll turn to Sue Caswell and say, Sue Caswell, I need your magic. So it's a team effort. I do want to commend the administrative team who are here tonight. We did a very, very good job this year of presenting the budget, not just to the school board, but to our ABC committee. They did great work, and I want to commend them as we get to the final stages of this process. So the microphones are open, and the meeting ends at 9 o'clock. So we have plenty of time to get cozy answer any questions you have. So,
Day Durham.
hi, Denise.
Hi. Could you go back to the slide with the drawing of the cafeteria? Could you explain where the additions, the 2 classroom additions would be on that drawing, please?
Sure. Recognizing that we haven't asked the architect to move on that issue at all because we're waiting for the board discussion tomorrow, where the blue area is. You are familiar with the building, Denise, as you come into the cafeteria and you walk into what looks like a yellow cafeteria. As you come from the hallway into the yellow area, the classrooms would be on that side of the building. We can tap into water from the wing that's already there if we need it and that kind of thing.
And the second question I have is, if warrant Article 6 does not pass, would there still be enough money to be able to do this expansion?
We, first of all, need the permission of the voters in terms of the use of the LGC money, and we do need the additional money because it's about a $545,000 project. So right now, we think we need both accounts. So why am I hedging? Because we budgeted this construction at $225 a square foot. It could come in that it's $200 a square foot, and therefore, you know, the one article would take care of it. But we don't know that, and the best judgment of our architect right now is to budget at $225 a square foot, and that's why we have both of those. Plus, we have other capital needs, so that $98,000. So if we don't need it here, as I articulated, we have the heating units on top of the middle school that need our attention. We have the whole facilities plan where we can draw out and take care of some other issues that are haunting us. Thank you.
And last question is, for the contract with Barrington, I understand it's $14,000. Does that increase over years, and what is the percent?
Thank you, Denise. Yeah. The Barrington contract increases as the cost of running the high school increases. So if in a given year the high school cost goes up, say 5%, the Barrington cost goes up 5%. If the cost goes up 1%, it would only go up 1%, so it's based on the cost of running the high school. Thank you. Oh, did you lose your notes, Dean?
My notes are my notes. Okay. Dean Rubine from Lee, New Hampshire. Congratulations on the great job on the budget. Coming in under inflation, a real cut. That's great. The first question I had was about the reserve fund. I remember a meeting where Business Administrator Caswell said we were going to put $500,000 in the reserve fund, and I was wondering if that happened. Did the board approve it? Will the board approve it?
Yeah. Thank you, Dean. The reserve account was an account that was created by the voters in the last budget. And as we came to the conclusion of the last budget, Sue Caswell, our business manager, presented the board several alternatives, and one of them was to put $500,000 into that account, and that was approved by the board.
Thank you. The second one is, I suppose, a comment that concerns the 2 Mohammed classrooms. There seems to be a plan to pay it off in 5 years, and by my estimate, in 5 years, the enrollment in Mohammed will be 160 children's down, which is probably about six or 7 classrooms worth of kids fewer in 5 years by the time we pay off our 2 new classrooms. If you need a question, the question is, why do we need 2 classrooms?
Well, this is exactly why this particular issue is an issue that the board hasn't settled in on. from a superintendent's perspective as opposed to a school board perspective. I wanted to have the conversation because currently several of our specials occupy classroom space in the wings. Art is a good example. It's occupying what would normally be a classroom space. Our OT program is occupying a substandard space in that building. And although the projected numbers for the elementary schools show a decline, I just think that in terms of space utilization, it would be great to have dedicated art and OT space outside of the classroom ring so we have the flexibility for other ideas in the future, bringing the 5th grade classrooms back into the elementary schools, possibly, or all-day kindergarten is a possibility. So it gives some flexibility in the schoolhouses. It also make both schoolhouses about the same in terms of the number of classrooms.
And on the same topic, can you explain the reason for the 3/5 vote required?
This on the warrant article.
5
Yeah, because that's raising taxpayer money, and because it's a construction project, it would require 3/5 vote by state statute.
Thank you. And I guess I wanted to express the concern, which was more acute when the tuition deal was with Newmarket, but it's still here. As we take more students in high school, our high school cost per pupil will decrease, barring other effects. Will Barrington's tuition decrease along with it?
No. I did run this by our attorneys. The $14,000 is set as a base, so if our costs miraculously lowered to $13,750, the cost would still be $14,000. It would take a lot of students, hundreds of students, to lower our per student cost down to $14,000. It's probably not realistic that it would ever get that low, but you're absolutely right. By bringing in additional students, Oyster River's cost per student should go down, but it won't go down anywhere near that.
So it's the 14,000. That's the
base.
That's the base, and that's going to stay like a constant number over the years.
That'll be what each year the base will change based on the cost of the high school.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean.
Jay Hilliard from Lee. First, I want to congratulate the board on addressing the issue of the Meharmet cafeteria, obviously. I think everyone's heard plenty about that, and it's good to finally get a plan in place to take care of that. The other part I would look at for the two additional classrooms for Meharmet, the only point I might raise is obviously we're going to put a big chunk into Meharmet to do the cafeteria, as we should. I wonder if this is really the year to also do the 2 additional classrooms when you have other deferred maintenance that's been at the middle school for quite some time, and even at the high school. We've got the $3 million of outstanding maintenance to be done. Is it the time to add new classrooms? Just a question.
I think that's the very question the board is also considering back and forth, which is why when I presented that particular article, I wasn't quite as adamant, because they haven't come down one side or the other on it, so thank you.
Sure, certainly. Just thought it'd be good to look at cleaning up some of the things that we have before we start new projects. Secondly, there was a reference to AP classes at the high school, and my understanding from a seminar that was done here last year is that there aren't, quote, AP classes at the high school. I may be mistaken in my interpretation of that.
Nope. We actually have a number of AP classes at the high school. Todd, is it 8 or 9? 9 separate AP classes we offer.
Okay, great.
Yep.
The seminar that we had gone to, it was more focused on why we didn't need AP classes because we were integrated.
Yeah.
Not that we actually had AP classes. So there may be a mixed message going out.
Yeah, it's an ongoing discussion inside the district, and the board is settled on the fact that until we have, an alternative that makes more sense, AP classes are here, and we'll support them. So what alternatives could exist to the idea of high school children taking courses at UNH or other colleges, having colleges come onto campus and teach our kids, dual enrollment where our staff gets certified by a college and they can teach their usual course and then add the college flavor to it. All of that is in the works, and so in the years ahead, it will be AP plus other ways of advancing our accelerated learners.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
William Hensey, Lee. I haven't paid much attention to what's going on this year, but I wonder if you could tell me if you anticipate any petitioned articles to be added to the warrant.
What's that? The deadline for petitioned articles has passed.
All right.
Thanks.
So-
So that was my business manager give me the right answer.
All right, thank you. I was just curious because last year we found out that the Sustainability Committee wanted to add money to the budget.
And what changed, William, between last year and this year is the board absorbed the Sustainability Committee as a board-appointed committee, so they no longer stand outside the budget, they are inside the budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're more than welcome.
It was made for tall people.
Yeah, it's okay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Rains. I'm from Madbury, New Hampshire. I have a daughter named Ava who's a third grader who goes to Mohammed, and it is a wonderful, wonderful school. And before we start, because this is about something different, I wanted to say I agree with you about the classrooms completely. They need it, and projecting for it to be a good school from here on out, they need the space because numbers change.
Thank you, Lindsay.
So, what I wanted to talk about is I had been talking to my daughter, and I don't know if you knew, but at one point, Mohammed had a school resource officer, Officer Tilley, who the kids really enjoyed having, and it was a very good community building. But also, as a mother, I know that we don't like to think about certain things because they're scary. And it was I was hesitant to have him there first, but then I really thought that it was a great idea. I happened to be talking to Ava this morning, about school, teachers and all that happens after vacation. And I asked her about Officer Tilley, and she said, haven't seen him in a while. So put her on the bus, went right away and called Chief of Madbury and said, what's the deal? I said, they locked the door. It's a glass door. You can blow a hole in the door if you want to. This is really, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone and saying, all better. So my takeaway from the conversation with him is that there is a plan in place, that there's community support for Madbury having a school resource officer that would cost $18,000 a year. There are federal grants that would pay for it, but it's not the cost that is prohibitive. My takeaway from the conversation was from some, either school board or Director Morse, that the problem was because Lee did not feel like they needed a school resource officer, therefore Madbury was not going to get one. So when I talked to Dr. Morse, who, thank you for, I thought we were going to have to play phone tag, but thank you for calling me right back. I really do appreciate it. It was very professional. Had stated, and this is my takeaway, that he talked to the chief of Lee. Lee didn't feel like they needed it in order to be equitable, because I pointed out we're two different towns. He said, but we're the same school district. In order to be equitable, if Lee doesn't want it, Madbury's not going to get it either. Well, I'm a little upset about that because we already pay for the middle school and the high school to have it. So why not the elementary? We all know that they're just as vulnerable as any kid, from something horrific like Newtown or a parent who just has a custody problem. We're counting on a locked door. We're more worked up about kids getting hurt in the gym, in the cafeteria, on equipment, than the potential for, I don't think I have to spell that part out. So when Dr. Morse and I talked, my takeaway was that there was favorable opinion for us having a SRO, basically. But the problem was that it would not be equitable, and there was also a general sentiment that because the police departments were so close, the response time would be very quick. My concern with that is, in Newtown, it was all over in 5 minutes. My husband is Madbury Fire, and I can tell you, sometimes they can't get out of the driveway that fast. People do not let rescue professionals out of the public safety complex. They just drive on by. And anyways, so I talked to the chief of Lee just to find out what he had said, and I think that perhaps he was taken out of context, because when we talked, my takeaway from him is he said, when I said that it might not be needed, his impression was Mastway, because it is Lee and they have a full-time police department, is separate from Mohammed, and Madbury, which is not his jurisdiction. Madbury has part-time police. So basically, right now, if we care enough to put one in for middle school and high school, why not the elementary? And personally, if we're going to vote on cafeterias, if we're going to vote on all the things that we have the warrant on, then I think this needs to be not only in the budget, but this needs to be a public discussion and a vote, because I do not feel comfortable with the safety of my daughter and my mother who works there being left up to, well, we couldn't do it because both schools didn't want it. That's not going to go over should any tragedy happen. So I'm asking, not only do we put it in the budget, but that we make it a very open and very public part of our discussion, no matter how much we might want to pretend like this is not something we have to talk about. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Lindsay. And I think that you characterized our conversation accurately. So I don't see anything other than to say thank you for touching base and sharing your thoughts.
Good, and thank you. I was appreciative. I was thinking I was going to have to play phone tag and then get brushed off. But I know that every single person in this room tonight, like you said up there, has the health and welfare of our kids at heart. So I'm pretty sure we can figure out how to make this happen. Thank you.
Thanks. Others who have questions this evening? Then let me close this meeting by saying thank you for being here, and thank you for your support of the school system. And hopefully I'll see you in Durham, Lee, and Madbury in the upcoming weeks. And hopefully you and many, many neighbors at the deliberative session, because the deliberative session actually, does frame the vote on March 11th. Again, thank you so much.